19 days into 2026, South Africa is living on edge. If you want to understand how this country really works, listen to every word. Because on Friday, 16th of January 2026, the head of criminal intelligence walked into an ad hoc committee room and described a police service under siege from the inside.
Is it corrupt?
Not a few bad apples, systems, networks, protection rackets wearing uniforms. And according to Dumisani Khumalo, a significant number of SAPS officers in Gauteng are compromised, not pressured, not influenced, owned. Today, I'm going to show you how corruption becomes infrastructure, how power gets traded, how investigations get frozen, not by force, but by fear. Get ready, because what you're about to hear isn't theory. It's a warning on the record, and it could explain everything. This is not a rumor. This is not social media noise. This is sworn testimony before Parliament. On Friday, 16th of January 2026, South Africa heard something chilling, not from an outsider, not from an activist, but from the head of criminal intelligence himself. Dumisani Khumalo walked into the ad hoc committee room, and he did not sugarcoat reality. He described a police service under siege from the inside. He spoke slowly, carefully, like a man choosing each word because he knows how dangerous words can be. What he described was not isolated corruption, not a few bad apples. He described systems, networks, protection rackets wearing uniforms. According to Khumalo, a significant number of SAPS officers in Gauteng are compromised, not influenced, not pressured, owned by provincial criminal organizations, organizations that understand power, organizations that understand fear, organizations that know how to survive. This committee is investigating widespread police corruption. And Khumalo's testimony showed just how deep that corruption goes. For 2 days, MPs and evidence experts questioned him, and what came out was disturbing. He explained how syndicate members inside SAPS protect themselves, not with silence alone, but with theater.
We say that because whatever that we were doing in now this covert operation will find its way to the very same cartel. That is from the resources. I think even the vehicles were all over the social media. The vehicles with registration plates that were used by the team. So as the team is working, they are going to courts and to police stations. So where they are, and then they are, then whatever that they are doing is given to the cartel members.
They create an illusion of proximity to power. They present themselves as connected, as untouchable, as friends of politicians, as people who should not be questioned. The goal is simple: to scare investigators, to slow cases, to stop questions before they begin. In this environment, perception becomes a weapon. You do not need real protection. You just need people to believe you have it. And that belief has worked for years. Khumalo made it clear, this is not happening only at low levels. This infiltration reaches high up, very high.
There is this, what is happening in Gauteng, where the highly trained combat members of SAPS are moonlighting for the cartels. In other words, working outside their working hours. It happened to the team, I think, on 2 occasions when they are moving with the combat teams from Gauteng. They get to a cartel member, and then the member will ask, "Hey, what are you doing here? Because you were with me last weekend, working for me."
Senior management, command structures, decision makers. That is what changes everything. Because when leadership is compromised, the system protects criminals instead of stopping them. Yet when pressed, Khumalo refused to name names. Not because he could not, but because many suspects are still under active investigation.
We should be able to get names, because that is the whole idea why we are here. We are not here to just search in the air. We want something that is touchable, something tangible, so that when we leave here, we're able to make the necessary recommendations and say whatever needs to happen to whoever, if we find that indeed there is some involvement with wrong people who are involved in destroying the future of our children in this country.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. Referring to the evidence under oath led by witnesses A, B, and C in Mazanga Commission, they are referring to some events where then they will be called to attend some social gatherings, and then they will find then senior officers also being together with their persons of interest in the investigation. They mentioned the provincial commissioner of Gauteng, the Major General Shibiri that I referred on yesterday. I'm not sure because I do not have that as part of my their statements as part of my.
He told the committee that exposing names now could collapse cases, could warn targets, could destroy years of intelligence work. It was a tense moment. Some MPs wanted answers immediately, but Khumalo stood firm. He chose investigations over headlines. Then he delivered his most alarming message. He said the situation has gone so far that standard procedures may no longer work. Normal reforms, internal discipline, routine oversight, all of it may be too weak. And that is when he called for something extraordinary, something South Africa has never seen before. Khumalo told Parliament that the infiltration within SAPS has reached a critical level.
But realizing the infiltration that we are experiencing now internally, that is at a very highest level of top management. And then that's what makes us to think that the interventions that needs to be implemented are the ones that have never been seen before.
This wasn't political theater. It was an intelligence-based warning on the record. He spoke about criminal syndicates that operate like businesses. They identify key officers, they buy loyalty, they apply pressure, they exploit fear. Once embedded, they do not rush, they wait, they influence decisions quietly. Transfers, promotions, evidence handling, case prioritization, small changes, big consequences. And Gauteng, according to Khumalo, is one of the hardest hit provinces. The reason is simple: money, power, access. Where crime generates profit, infiltration follows. He explained that compromised officers often signal protection by hinting at political ties. They drop names, they imply meetings, they suggest immunity. Whether those ties are real or not almost does not matter. The illusion alone is often enough to freeze action. Investigators hesitate, supervisors delay, files move slowly, and criminal networks stay alive. Khumalo did not claim that every officer is corrupt. He made that clear, but he said enough are compromised to endanger the entire system. And when corruption reaches senior management, internal correction becomes nearly impossible. Because who watches the watchers when the watchers are compromised? That question hung in the room. Then came the warning. Khumalo said that the depth of infiltration demands interventions that South Africa has never implemented before. His words were measured, but the message was explosive. He told Parliament that when infiltration exists at very high levels of senior management, normal responses fail. Internal investigations get blocked. Disciplinary systems get manipulated. Oversight becomes performative. In short, the system starts defending itself instead of cleansing itself. That is why he urged lawmakers to think beyond tradition. He did not outline specific measures. He did not make proposals on the record, but his message was unmistakable. This crisis cannot be fixed quietly. It cannot be fixed slowly. And it cannot be fixed internally alone. He described a moment where the state must decide how serious it is about policing reform, because without decisive action, criminal syndicates will continue to hollow out SAPS from within. And once public trust is gone, it is almost impossible to rebuild. The ad hoc committee is now moving to its next phase. On Tuesday, 20 January 2026, members are expected to hear testimony from Robert McBride.
Require good senior policemen not to investigate.
He says dirty cops targeted IPID.
They are there in greed and survival. That's where their minds are.
The former head of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. His appearance is expected to add more pressure, more context, and possibly more uncomfortable truths. This inquiry is no longer theoretical. It is exposing a police service at a crossroads. One path leads to denial and decay. The other requires courage and unprecedented action. Khumalo has put the warning on record. What Parliament does next will define the future of policing in South Africa. This story is still unfolding, and it is only getting bigger. Next comes the part that scares institutions. Not the discovery, the accountability. Because now Parliament has baseline claims on the record, and the next witnesses will either confirm them, contradict them, or bury them in procedure. Expect more caution, more "we can't name names," more legal language, but watch the pattern. Who answers directly and who hides behind process? And watch the ceiling, how high up corruption goes before someone finally says, enough. If this phase turns into deflection, public trust drops even further. If it turns into clarity, the country will demand action, not another report.
What we know from now that is that 7 people were shot here. I mean, there were about 10 people that were injured, but 7, 6 died here, and 1 died on a way to hospital in an ambulance.
While Parliament debates infiltration inside SAPS, Cape Town is living the consequences in real time. 8 people are dead after a mass shooting linked to extortion at an illegal bar in the Marikana informal settlement in Cape Town. The attack happened in the early hours of Saturday morning, when gunmen opened fire inside a crowded shebeen. What police found afterward points to a familiar and growing threat in the Western Cape: organized extortion networks using violence to enforce control. Western Cape Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Thembisile Patakile arrived at the scene alongside senior officers. The location is not unfamiliar to police. In 2017, 11 people were shot and killed in the same area. That history added weight to the visit and urgency to the response. For investigators, this was not just another crime scene. According to Patakile, 6 victims died at the scene. 1 person died inside an ambulance while being transported for medical care. Another victim later died in hospital. The total death toll reached 8. Several others were shot, including the woman who owned the shebeen. Police confirmed that more people were inside the illegal bar at the time of the shooting. Only some were hit by gunfire. Others escaped unharmed. Investigators believe the attackers targeted the location deliberately. The shebeen was known in the area. It was active late into the night. It was visible, and it was vulnerable. Patakile stated clearly that police believe the motive behind the shooting was extortion. According to him, criminal groups operating in the area demand money from local businesses in exchange for protection. When demands are not met, violence follows. This shooting, police say, fits that pattern.
We don't want your name. You just give us the information and how these people come and collect and where are they collecting. We've got to dismantle this, but we request the community to work with us. They should not be working with extortionists. They should be working with the police to prevent those extortionists, so that we can prevent such unnecessary shootings that have happened in this place, when the people were just enjoying them.
The commissioner told reporters that investigators are not working blindly. He said, police believe they know who they are looking for. Intelligence teams are active. Police believe the suspects are part of an extortion network operating within the settlement. No arrests have been announced yet, but he said investigators are closing in. Patakile used the moment to renew a public call for cooperation. He urged residents and business owners to report extortion attempts. He emphasized the existence of a police toll-free number designed specifically for this purpose. According to him, many of these attacks could be prevented if extortion is reported early.
But we're also requesting the community, appealing to the community, not to work with the extortionists or the people that are collecting protection. Now we understand that in this Marikana there are groups that are collecting from the informal settlement and other people in this area. And we have a number, a toll-free number that you don't pay. It's 0800 314444, which in the past we've been using this number and we've been successful in cracking down on these groupings of extortion.
We are still appealing that this can be prevented only by reporting it. We don't need your name. Just tell us where it happens, who are doing it, when are they collecting, and then we know our own systems and our tactics, that how we deal with them, and we've been successful in that. We are hoping again that let's work. If the community is working with us, we will again nip this by the butt. We have a toll-free number that you don't pay. It's 0800 314, which in the past we've been using this number and we've been successful in cracking down on these groupings of extortions in these areas. He acknowledged that extortion is underreported. Fear plays a major role. Many residents believe that speaking to police will make them targets. Others believe extortion groups are too powerful to challenge. Patekile argued that silence only strengthens criminal networks and leads to more bloodshed. Following the shooting, police increased deployments in Marikana and surrounding areas. Visible patrols were reinforced. Intelligence officers were deployed to gather information from the community. According to Patekile, this strategy depends heavily on public cooperation. Without tips, investigations stall. Without witnesses, cases collapse. He stressed that communities should not cooperate with extortionists. Paying protection money does not guarantee safety, it only funds further violence. He said working with police is the only path to reducing shootings like the one seen in Marikana. Residents described a community living under constant pressure. Sifiwo Tofile, a resident and former community leader from Section A of Marikana, said instability has defined the area for years. He explained that his wife and children are too afraid to live there permanently. They visit only when necessary. Tofile said he first learned about the shooting through social media. At first, it felt distant. Then he realized the reports were about his own neighborhood. Messages circulated urging residents to come forward and identify relatives who had not returned home that night. He arrived at the scene later and found police everywhere. The area was sealed off. Emergency vehicles lined the road. Officers moved through the settlement, collecting evidence and securing the perimeter. The shebeen where the shooting occurred was a place Tofile knew well. He said he often played pool there and watched television. He confirmed that the owner of the shebeen was shot. Residents later said she died from her injuries, according to reports from the scene. For residents, the death underscored the risks faced by informal business owners in areas dominated by extortion groups. By Saturday, the physical damage was impossible to ignore. Inside the shebeen, the damage told the story. Shattered glass, torn walls, and the kind of silence that follows rapid gunfire. Outside, families gathered in shock, trying to confirm names, trying to understand why this place was chosen. The atmosphere was tense and quiet. Conversations were hushed. People watched the road closely. The sense of shock was mixed with resignation. For many residents, violence has become a recurring presence rather than a sudden disruption. Police maintain that this case will be pursued aggressively. Patekile said the goal is not only arrests but dismantling extortion networks entirely. He admitted this is difficult work. These groups are organized, they rely on fear, and they exploit silence. Is this violence isolated or part of a wider pattern spreading across Cape Town? As Marikana processes the shock of the shebeen shooting, another violent incident adds weight to police warnings about escalating gun violence linked to organized crime. This time, the scene shifts to Crossroads, where a separate shooting left one person dead and several others critically injured. While investigators have not publicly confirmed a connection, the proximity in time and method raises unavoidable questions. On Friday, hours before the Marikana attack, gunmen opened fire at a home in Crossroads. Among the victims was Bulelwa Mchagi, a 46-year-old former Cape Town athlete. She was shot 7 times inside her own house. Her 24-year-old son was also shot, suffering a wound to his leg. Her nephew sustained multiple gunshot injuries during the same attack. A family member, who asked not to be identified, confirmed that a friend of Mchagi's son died during the shooting. According to the family, the attackers approached by jumping over a neighboring wall before opening fire. The assault was sudden, violent, and over within moments, leaving devastation behind. Mchagi and her nephew remain in critical condition in hospital. Doctors continue to monitor them closely. The family says they are praying for survival while trying to process what happened. Fear now defines daily life. The shooting has left the household traumatized and uncertain about safety, even within their own walls. The motive behind the Crossroads shooting has not yet been confirmed. Unlike the Marikana case, police have not publicly stated that extortion was the driving factor. However, residents describe a community plagued by repeated shootings and unresolved violence. For them, the cause matters less than the reality. Gunfire has become a recurring sound. Family members say the area has seen several shootings in recent times, many of them fatal. Each incident deepens fear and distrust. People stay indoors. Movement is cautious. Neighbors speak quietly. The sense of control no longer belongs to residents, but to those carrying weapons. On Saturday, physical evidence of violence was still visible in Crossroads. Bullet holes marked the walls of the home. Bloodstains remained near the entrance. Family members sat outside the yard, too afraid to stay inside. The fear was not symbolic, it was practical. They worried the attackers might return, Lieutenant General Thembisile Patekile confirmed the Crossroads incident and said police were following leads. He did not provide details on suspects or arrests. As with Marikana, the investigation remains active. Intelligence teams are working quietly. Information is limited. What connects these incidents is not yet a confirmed network, but a shared environment. Communities under pressure, illegal firearms, organized criminals who act with confidence, police responses that depend heavily on public cooperation, and residents caught between fear and survival. Patekile has repeatedly emphasized that extortion and organized crime thrive on silence. In Marikana, he directly linked the mass shooting to extortion networks. In Crossroads, the absence of a stated motive highlights the challenge investigators face when communities are reluctant to speak openly. Extortion by nature is hidden. Victims are pressured not to report. Threats are personal. Violence is public. By the time police arrive, the damage is already done. The pattern is difficult to break without information from inside affected neighborhoods. These incidents also underline the limits of reactive policing. Deployments increase after shootings, patrols become visible, intelligence teams move in. But once attention fades, criminal structures remain. This cycle has repeated itself across Cape Town for years. For residents, the cost is psychological as much as physical. Families relocate when they can. Children grow up with fear normalized. Former community leaders like Sifiwo Tofile in Marikana distance their loved ones from places they once called home. The question now facing authorities is whether these shootings are symptoms or warnings. Each incident alone is tragic. Together, they suggest a city struggling to contain armed criminal networks that operate across informal settlements and residential areas alike. Police insist they are committed to dismantling these networks. Patekile has spoken about intelligence-led operations and the need for unprecedented interventions. However, without sustained community trust, intelligence remains incomplete. The Marikana shooting drew attention because of its scale. 8 people died in one attack. Crossroads adds another layer, showing how violence also enters private spaces. Homes are no longer sanctuaries. Bars are no longer just social spaces. Every location becomes vulnerable. There is also a broader implication for informal economies. Shebeens, small businesses, and local operators often exist outside formal regulation. This makes them easy targets for extortion groups seeking control. Violence becomes a tool of enforcement. In both cases, the victims were ordinary people, a business owner, family members, a former athlete. None were armed, none were prepared. Their lives intersected with criminal power structures they did not choose. As investigations continue, police face pressure to deliver arrests and reassurance. Communities demand visibility and results. Yet history shows that without structural disruption, arrests alone rarely end violence. The next steps will matter: whether police can turn intelligence into action, whether communities feel safe enough to report extortion, whether oversight bodies monitor progress, whether political will matches police rhetoric. For now, Cape Town mourns multiple victims from different neighborhoods, connected by fear and unanswered questions. The violence has not paused. It has only shifted locations. These stories are still unfolding. What they reveal is a city at a crossroads of its own, between silence and cooperation, between fear and resistance, between reaction and prevention. The answer to whether this violence is isolated will come not from statements, but from outcomes. From arrests, from disrupted networks, from communities that no longer brace for gunfire at night. Until then, Marikana and Crossroads stand as reminders. When criminal violence spreads unchecked, no area remains untouched, and every unanswered shooting becomes part of a larger, more dangerous pattern. As we wrap up this video, the picture is stark. South Africa faces a dual challenge: corruption within the police service and violent criminal networks on the streets. Dumisani Khumalo's testimony showed that even those meant to uphold the law can be compromised. When senior officers are influenced or infiltrated by criminal syndicates, the system designed to protect citizens can fail. This is not theoretical, it has real consequences. The shootings in Marikana and Crossroads underline that reality. Extortion, intimidation, and gun violence are not isolated incidents. Communities are paying the price for both organized crime on the streets and gaps in accountability within law enforcement. Families are grieving, residents live in fear, bars, homes, and informal settlements become battlegrounds. But Khumalo's warnings and Patekile's active investigations show that action is possible. Transparency, intelligence-led operations, and public cooperation are key. Communities speaking up can disrupt these cycles. Without it, criminals exploit silence, and corruption shields them. These stories don't have to be the same network to belong to the same ecosystem. They run on the same fuel: fear, silence, and criminals who believe they can operate without consequences. One story is inside institutions, the other is on the streets. But both point to the same question: who is really in control? We will continue following both threads closely, tracking the outcomes of parliamentary inquiries and criminal investigations. Staying informed is the first step toward change. The question remains: will accountability and courage prevail, or will fear continue to dictate daily life?